If you want to make independent games as a job, I can't think of a better developer to offer his advice than William Dube. He knows what spending years on a single game feels like. That game was called Sundered, only to watch it fail immediately on launch with negative reviews on Steam. Yet somehow Will powered through self-doubt, patched the game, and also eventually released a viral sensation called Spiritfarer. Perhaps you've heard of it. This is a clip from the full-length podcast, and you're going to learn a ton from someone who knows what the indie doldrums feels like, but more importantly, how to climb out of it into the light of viral indie success. You may also be wondering how to turn that $100,000 or $1 million game idea into actual money. And some of you might want to do it before you even finish your game. For that, I have a gift below for you. It's totally free. It's a workshop that shows you how to turn small game ideas into actual money. You know, you're running a business, and you're both a creative person and you're both a business owner. You're an entrepreneur.
Right.
Let's talk really quick about the history of Thunder Lotus and just your game dev career. I like to ask this question. I'm going to start asking it more on the podcast. What was the hardest day for you as a game developer running Thunder Lotus? Can you remember it?
Yeah, I think the hardest day was the day we launched Sundered.
I figured you'd say that.
Yeah, in the summer of 2017. But when we launched Sundered, basically we launched the game, and there, can go as deep as you want into this, but basically the game was way too hard at launch, and the loading times were suboptimal. Were pretty long, pretty chunky loading times. So,
do you know how long that was specifically?
Sometimes it was like 2 minutes
for Steam.
Yeah, for Steam, to generate the levels and everything. It was very long.
Unity.
Unity, yeah, but it had to do with how we were able to optimize though later. It was
probably the compression of the images, right? The 2D art.
No, I think a lot of it was how we were randomly generating the levels. So really way too hard and long loading times. And the game is a kind of like a mix between a Hollow Knight and Dead Cells. So it's a roguelike Metroidvania. So obviously the goal of the game is to die and restart and go through that loop. But when your loop is happening every 2 minutes or 3 minutes because the game is too hard, and then your loading is 2 minutes because the loadings aren't optimized, then you're gonna have a bad time. Basically. And so we launched on a Friday. Right away, the Metacritic scores were lower than we were hoping. We had some decent scores.
I think you ended at a 7, right?
Yeah, we had some. We were mostly at 7.
I remember that actually, because I was following you and I was like really excited for you.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's okay to talk this way about this game now that you've had Spiritfarer just completely vindicate you. But I feel like Sundered was tough for you guys because it was trying to follow up this small artsy game, which was Jotun.
Yep.
And it had a small community that loved it on Kickstarter, and then Sundered comes out, and it seems like it was a complex game, more complex than Jotun, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it felt like you guys had, man, I hope I'm not saying mean things. Go ahead. Honestly, felt like you had bitten off more than you could chew. And I'm not sure if that's true. It looks like you repaired the game's reputation because you're sitting at very positive now, which is awesome. Way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy. No offense taken, and I'm happy to jump into it. So that first weekend, we ended up negative in negative reviews on Steam.
Wow.
And so we were in the red on Steam.
I'm so sorry. That must have sucked.
Yeah, it was rough. It was rough. It was a rough couple of days. And then Monday we patched it, but at that point it was too late, right? It was too late for the algorithm. It was too late for the mind share around the game. We'd had, a good amount of influencers or streamers play the game and stuff, but with the loading times and everything, it was just like, it's kind of broken or whatever. One thing that definitely helped save the game at that point was that we had a deal with Sony, so we were console exclusive.
Wow.
So we launched Steam and PS4. So we'd had like 2 weeks of pre-orders before then, and we had a good amount of marketing support from Sony. So we were able to clear, like a 10,000 units in the first week or something like that.
Wow. For PlayStation?
For, I think all platforms combined.
Okay.
Which was, it's not peak, but it was very decent. Still, so that helped us kind of pad that launch. And then the Vindication didn't have to wait until Spiritfarer. I mean, we launched Eldritch Edition, which was the Switch and the Xbox version of the game, about 6 months later. And when we launched Eldritch Edition, we were at 90% positive on Steam. So it was like, it was hard because we were like, well, I wish we could go back and release that version of the game at launch, but obviously you can't. But fundamentally as well, I mean, what hurt Sundered was a bunch of mistakes, obviously, that led to that in terms of performance, in terms of game balancing, all that, but also just the market too. Like, when we started conception for Sundered right after we launched Jotun, so that would be like in October 2014, and at that point we're like, Metroidvanias are the next big thing, and like obviously we weren't the only small studio to kind of figure that out, and to see that in their crystal ball. So
when did Team Cherry release Hollow Knight relative to Sundered?
Exactly. So with into that 2017, before us, Hollow Knight launched and Dead Cells launched.
I see. So Hollow Knight was February and Sundered was July.
Yeah.
So you guys were right next to each other, basically.
And Dead Cells released before us too. And full kudos to them. Dead Cells and Hollow Knight were better games than Sundered. Like there's no doubt there. So we came in after both of those massive successes with a game that wasn't as good as either of them, with a messed up launch too there. So a lot of lessons there. But when the game launched and we saw the reviews starting in, it was a big kick to the stomach, and
But the problem with initial reviews, especially critic reviews, is that I'm pulling up a review here from Roger Ebert about Home Alone. And I'm not sure if Home Alone was big in Canada when you were growing up, but I'm sure it was. So here's a review from Roger Ebert about Home Alone in 1990, okay? Here's what he says. And by the way, this movie did not do well when it first came out, but he said...
Really? I didn't know that.
It didn't, no. Roger Ebert said, "I didn't enjoy the subplot involving the burglars." I highlighted that and posted on Twitter because I was like, that is literally the plot. And he said, he basically says, Home Alone should have limited itself to things that might possibly happen to an 8-year-old. I think I would have liked it more. So effectively, he's saying, like, I wish that Home Alone just showed more things that 8-year-olds do. Like, I guess, like playing Game Boy. So the reason I'm bringing this up is when it comes to critical reviews, it's really hard. You need time. You need time to really tell you whether a product is good or not. Same is true with Great Gatsby. When Great Gatsby was released as a novel, nobody cared. I think it was only when F. Scott Fitzgerald died that book became popular.
Yeah, but you see, I would much rather put my studio in a position where our games come out and are universally acclaimed.
I know.
And then we don't have to wait till I die for them to have success,
I know, but your beautiful children could maybe, reap the rewards while you're in the grave,
Yeah, no, exactly. But I think part of that comes down to like business strategy as well. And a sentence that I've used a lot, or that we've used internally a lot over the years, is going viral is not a strategy, No. Like Peak, I think, is a great example, obviously Peak is a good game. Obviously Peak was put out by people who know what they're doing, with Aggro Crab and Landfall and all that. But I think if a lot of people look at Peak and are like, oh, this is what I should be doing, I think there's a lot of risk in that, because how many Game Jam games come out and don't have the success of Peak?
Yeah, it's like buying lottery tickets, and hoping that your game markets itself.
And what I'm seeing now from various publishers and investors and stuff is that they're willing to take that bet, sub $1 million, development budgets and all that, or they look at the success of Balatro or Peak or whatever, but they'll fund. If you're going that model, it's like a VC model. You have to fund 25 of those games, and 24 of them are going to fail. And then the 25th, hopefully you knock it out of the park and it pays for all of your failures and then some.
Yeah, but that sucks for the developers because they don't.
Exactly. That's not a good model for developers. No. I saw a newer studio who were making very small games and were having a lot of success on Twitch. There was a game with a guy looking at you in a hotel room, and like that was the whole game.
Are you talking about click holding?
I think so, yes.
And he's got a clicker?
Yes, I think so. But
Yeah,
that studio, that's their strategy.
That's Strange Scaffold. That's Oliver Nelson Jr. He was on the podcast last year.
Right.
And that's their strategy. And that's his strategy. And what's funny though, is that some of his games, they're like, they don't do great. I think one of them has like mixed reviews on Steam. And it's like, I kind of want to have that mentality of like, or at least there's a part of me that wants to have that mentality where it's just like, just get the games done. Because that's what he was saying on the podcast. He was like, a released game is better than a great game. He said something like that. He'd rather release games and just get them done. Now, as I've aged out of that, I've learned a lot in the last 6 months since I've had that podcast. And I'm curious what your thoughts are. I actually disagree. I would much rather just make a really good game, even if that means I spend 3-4 years on it. It's not because it's a good business decision, but just because I don't think I can release a game that I don't think is perfect. Do you have any thoughts there?
Then that strategy isn't the right one for you.
Right.
Or, who knows? Maybe that, like, one thing that we often talk about in the studio is imagine we were starting our studio today, how much harder it would be for us versus starting our studio in 2014, And I think part of that is true. Like we definitely were able to ride the wave of the digital distribution wave, Steam opening up, indie games. We're not within the first indie games to come out, right? We're not within that first Braid, Fez hype. So we didn't ride that first wave, but we were still able to catch the kind of the tailwind or the end of that wave. And I think that
2016.
Yeah, something like that. I think that definitely helped us to get to the success where we are today. But I think Strange Scaffolding, or the name of their studio.
Yeah, Strange Scaffold.
Strange Scaffold are a great example of a studio who have figured out how to have success in today's market, which is the TikTok market or whatever you want to call it. Or, the world, the gamers are very different today than they were 10 years ago. And 20-year-olds today are different than 20-year-olds 10 years ago. So I think you need to kind of adapt your strategy. You can adapt your strategy to who you are. And like you said, I'm an artist. I want to spend 3 or 4 years on this game, make it the best that it can be and deliver it. Or you could have that, that kind of spray and pray approach, which is more akin to mobile games, which is really interesting because, I started my career in mobile games as a mobile game designer. I worked for 2.5 years and we actually started making Facebook games. So we were starting making Farmville type games, then moved to like premium Angry Birds, Fruit Ninja type games, and then moved to free to play because the free to play kind of happened after that and it was the big thing. But there's a lot of similarities between, or you can take a lot of the learnings from the mobile market and, what a mess that is and became and bring those towards Steam, which is honestly a big mess, or the whole, not just Steam but just the general games market today, and how competitive it is and how hard it is to get to visibility and all that. So
you may also be wondering how to turn that $100,000 or $1 million game idea into actual money. And some of you might want to do it before you even finish your game. For that, I have a gift below for you. It's totally free. It's a workshop that shows you how to turn small game ideas into actual money.